All right, welcome back. Let's go straight to our discussion. My guests are joining me right now, Dr. Chijioke Ekechukwu from my far right. He's the Chief Executive Officer at Bristol Group. Welcome to the program. And Professor Ofoegbu is also joining me, former DG at NBRRI. Welcome to the program. Taiwo Oyedele is joining me from Lagos. He's the West Africa tax leader at PricewaterhouseCoopers. Mr. Oyedele, good to have you again on the program, and welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, let me start with you, because, and let me just take it from, of course, we're discussing the budget and what the president did say concerning the budget. When he was reading to the members of the National Assembly, he did say that budget 2020 is based on the new VAT rate to fund education, health, and infrastructure. Just talk to me about this budget based on the new VAT rate increase from 5% to 7.5%. That's the A part of my question. The B part of my question, which I want you to speak to, because I know you'll be leaving us in a short while to attend to something else. The B part of my question is what the president did say about the exemption. VAT Act already exempt pharmaceuticals, educational items, and basic commodities, which they did list brown or white bread, cereals, roots, tubers, and all of that, flour, fruits, and salt, herbs, and natural water, and table water. What I also want you to clarify, because there seems to be this kind of confusion, which I tried to clarify also yesterday, but I want you to clarify, is what the budget speech did mention, that our proposals to raise the threshold for VAT registration to 25 million naira in turnover per annum, such as the revenue authorities can focus their compliance efforts on larger businesses, bringing relief to MSMEs. So 2 questions, A and the B part.
Thank you very much. So the president said during the budget presentation that the 7.5% VAT is to help Nigeria fund education, healthcare, and infrastructure, which is good, but somewhat inconsistent with the message we got earlier on from the finance minister that the main purpose for this 7.5% VAT is to help states to fund the new minimum wage. Last year, 2018, the FRS collected 1.1 trillion from VAT, which was the highest in Naira terms. So all things being equal, at 7.5%, you can only make, say, about 550 billion more. And this is shared 15% to the federal government, 50% to the states, and 35% to the local government. Apparently, the states that are most in need of the money are also the ones who get the lowest share of VAT. So that really doesn't address the problem of minimum wage, and it will not be sufficient. Now, to then expect that on top of the minimum wage, this money would also be available to fund education, healthcare, and infrastructure, in my view, is promising too much. And if we overpromise and we under-deliver, it affects the trust between the people and government. So my view is, if you're able to raise additional money from VAT, apply it first and foremost to meet minimum wage, because we need to give our people decent living conditions, and then the rest of it can go into healthcare, education, and infrastructure. The second part of your question, in terms of the exemption list, what some of us had recommended is that if you raise VAT rate to 7.5%, clearly that will impact on the ability of Nigerians to have purchasing power. While it's okay for the middle class and the upper class to pay a little bit more, the bottom of the ladder, about 120 million people living in poverty, cannot afford any extra burden. So the idea, based on what Mr. President presented, is to try and create an exemption list such that the things that the poor people and poorest people in Nigeria consume do not attract the higher VAT of 7.5%. So that was the attempt they made by trying to make a list of milk, list of roots, fruits, and a few other things. But I think that list needs to be more comprehensive. So hopefully by the time we have the detailed guidelines and the order by the minister, because by law, the Minister of Finance is empowered to vary the rate of VAT as well as the schedule of exempt and zero-rated items. So we look forward to more detailed outline to ensure that the objective is met, which is to exempt poorest people in society from the burden of this higher VAT rate. So the second part of your second question, which is on the VAT threshold. Now, in Nigeria today, even if your sales in a month is only 1,000 naira by law, and that includes barbers, Okada riders, your hairdresser, and your tailor, are supposed to register for VAT, charge VAT, and remit it on a monthly basis to the FRS. That's too much burden. We do not know of any other country in over 100 countries where they have VAT that places that kind of a burden on their citizens. So what Mr. President has now proposed, which is commendable, is to say that micro businesses, if your sales or turnover, as we put it in accounting, in a year is under 25 million, you don't even have to register for VAT. And by law, if you are not registered for VAT, you don't need to charge VAT on your goods and services to your customers. However, this does not mean that that small business itself will not pay VAT if it was buying anything that is liable to VAT. For example, a small business with turnover of only 10 million naira in a year that is paying for a recharge card, we have to still pay VAT on that recharge card. But if that small business itself is selling, let's say it's selling non-alcoholic wines, it will not have to charge VAT when it's selling it to its customers. If it's doing hairdressing, it will not have to charge VAT, and so on and so forth. So this is essentially what it is. I think in principle it's a good thing, because that way the tax authorities can focus on the medium-sized enterprises and the large firms, which in any case are the ones who bring in the bulk of the VAT revenue in Nigeria.
So with what you just said right now, will it be okay to say that the president or the federal government has exempted firms within the 25 million naira turnover from VAT? From this, will it be right to say firms that make that turnover of 25 million naira lower than 25 million naira, isn't it, from paying VAT?
Not exactly. So firms who make 25 million naira or less have been exempted from charging VAT. They have not been exempted from paying VAT when they make purchases. Otherwise, if we just say they have been exempted, it will give the wrong impression that they don't have to pay VAT themselves.
So they've been exempted from paying VAT, isn't it?
No, from charging VAT to their own customers.
Yes, from charging VAT to their own customers. But that does not mean that if I want to purchase something, I will definitely pay VAT for that, if it's in line with the factors of production which I'm involved in. I hope you understand what I'm saying.
No, let me try and clarify. I think it's very important. So if you have Nancy Enterprises, and Nancy Enterprises make sales of 20 million naira in a year. So Nancy Enterprises will not have to charge its customers for services that you render to them. You will not have to register for VAT. You will not have to charge them anything at all. But if Nancy Enterprises wants to buy airtime, he wants to buy computer, he wants to buy anything that is liable to VAT, it will still have to pay VAT. So the exemption is not for the entity itself, it's for the customers of the entity that makes 25 million naira or less that this exemption covers.
So in other words, you are bringing relief to SMEs, somehow.
That's correct. That's correct, yes. Yeah. That way they can grow better, and when they get to the level where they have more sales, it's also an indication that they have better capacity to comply with the tax law, then they come into the VAT net.
Yeah, and perhaps they will also have capacity to grow, and
That's
grow
correct.
from micro
That's
to
correct.
small to medium. Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Oyedele, let's stick with you for just another question before you go, because he has to go. Budget 2020, is it a budget for the people, really? Is it a budget for the people? That's the A part of the question. The B part also is, especially with what happened yesterday, that the president met with members of the ESA, the Economic Advisory Council. He's giving them a mandate. You know, I talked about it earlier on in terms of get us good statistics. We'll try as much as possible to get inclusive growth and all of that. Is the budget a budget of the people? And with the mandate given to the ESC, what do you think?
Yeah, I think whether the budget is eventually going to be the budget of the people or not will not be so much about what was presented by Mr. President that is now being deliberated upon by the lawmakers. It will be mostly about the implementation. So ordinarily, you know, the budget is very small. At 10 trillion for the size of our population, that should be our budget for only basic education. So, and if you then look at it, the budget is small, and you look at what goes into human capital development, essentially education and healthcare is so very small. Even if you eliminate corruption and wastage, that cannot move the needle. But I do understand we can't ask Nigeria to, you know, spend the money it does not have. So, but whatever it is that we have there, no matter how little, we have to focus on effective implementation with transparency to communicate to say, I have so little, but I've been so efficient. And then if we can generate more revenue, we then do more. In terms of the mandate of the Economic Advisory Council, to be honest, I was not expecting Mr. President to ask them to focus on, you know, data collection and statistics. The caliber of people we have in the Economic Advisory Council is such that, you know, all of us were very excited. I believe also the international community was excited. My preference would be for them to focus on strategic issues around economic policies, things to do with Nigeria's competitiveness, locally and internationally, things to do with job creation. How can we get more efficiency in government? How can we, you know, for example, have things to do with job creation and supporting SME, capital markets to raise funding? How can we raise our revenue in a sustainable manner? Those strategic issues, in my view, should be their primary. To use for their work. These people are already very well experienced. They're very intelligent. They know they have to work with Bureau of Statistics as well as various agencies and Ministry of Government in getting the data. And as much as possible, even the international, you know, organizations like the IMF and the World Bank also have useful information. We should not, you know, disagree with data just because we don't like what the data is saying. I think that for you to make very robust, data-driven decisions, you have to look at all available evidence and objectively analyze it to say what is the step forward.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Oyedele. I think I'll have to let you go at this point. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much
for your perspective. So we'll take it from here, here in the studio. Thank you very much. All right. We've heard what Mr. Oyedele had to say. In fact, this last statement, you know what came to my mind that the president talked about when it comes to statistics. That I think I did talk about it earlier on. Yes. That most of the statistics will say about Nigeria developed abroad by the World Bank, IMF, and other foreign bodies. And what came to my mind is, you know, we've been talking about data integrity, processes of data collection, and all of that. But if these people are also giving us money, we willingly go to them for money. Would you now say you now refuse their data? But that's just by the way. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Yeah. Okay, they are giving you money. You go to them. I think there's even a $2.5 billion loan from the World Bank, which was talked about some weeks ago. But anyway, that's by the way. Prof, let me come to you. 2020 budget. Your views, and especially what Mr. Oyedele had said. If you have other things to say.
I think one could say, within the limits of our resources, it wasn't a bad budget. But we need to look at the breakdown, which we have not gotten. The breakdown, for example, when you talk about works in the budget, Works is said to, Works has the highest, 262. That's good. Works and housing. That's good enough. But then when it gets to implementation, to what extent will this solve the problems associated with works and housing? When you take a drive from Abuja to Lokoja, supposed to be an hour, 30 minutes drive on a moderate speed of 100 kilometers per hour. Today it takes about 3 hours. Absolute failure on the roads. Every point where you have these potholes, you have uneven pavements, they constitute failure. That brings with it crime, kidnapping, armed robbery, because people are not moving the way they should move. Coupled with the checkpoints, which international checkpoints are actually regarded as road failures, because anything that inhibits movement constitutes a failure on the road. And occasionally, these criminals, the checkpoints are put at the worst parts of the road. So we need to be sure this money is going to be spent for what it's meant for. Housing. I don't think we have up to 30% occupants, Nigerians, to have been adequately housed. When you inject all this money, let us be sure it will be spent for what it was meant. If so, not bad. Then you look at power. Well, there's some improvement in power, but go to the rural areas, go to some areas. I'm happy to hear that they're beginning to sanction the discos recently, because some discos are literally living on estimated bills and never remitting anything to the center. And then transportation here is crucial. 123 billion. We want to know what it will be used for. Some of us will be watching. I do hope I'll be back on this program sometime to find out what this money was used for. We need to develop our rail lines. A major cause of concern on our roads is the articulated vehicles that are on these highways, killing people, damaging bridges, damaging the roads. If we have our rail lines, 70% of what you find on the Nigerian vehicles you find on the highways will not be there. And then let us emphasize the country roads, the roads that pass through the countryside. These are the roads that integrate the economy, bring in agriculture. This is where the food baskets are. We must have a way of assessing them. People can pass through there. Some families can go through there on their way to Abuja or Sokoto or anywhere, all because they want to buy a few baskets of potato and what have you. And also, you develop tourism. And then UBE, education, then defense. Defense, yes, is crucial. And I think we need a bit more on defense. What bothers me most in this budget is the zonal intervention projects. We have not really spelled out which ones are zonal intervention. How do you enforce, how do you implement zonal intervention? Is it in terms of geopolitical zones? And if it's in terms of geopolitical zones, who determines what and what each geopolitical zone requires? There's going to be a conflict of implementing an authority. You have the Federal Ministry of Works in charge of all the federal highways. When you come down to the zones, take the Southeast, for example. I'm sorry, I come from the Southeast. Travel from Enugu to Onitsha. Enugu to Onitsha is supposed to take you only an hour. Now it takes you about 4 hours. Travel from Asaba to Onitsha. It's supposed to be a 20 minutes drive. Because of the nature of the infrastructure, it takes you about 2 hours. The other day, we spent 2.5 hours between Asaba Airport and Onitsha. Then, I don't want to talk about Port Harcourt, the oil producing center in this country. Go from Enugu on that highway to Port Harcourt. It's a 5-hour journey now. You don't even go on the highway. You have to go through the villages. So when you take zonal intervention, one expects that you now categorize these problems, this east-west link roads and so on, then go to the north. People think that the north things are very wonderful. Go from Numan, go to Karen Lamode, go to some places, you see roads are totally washed off. In fact, with your vehicle, you go through the rivers. We're lucky these rivers are not very deep. Otherwise, every day we would have been finding people drown, families drown. So we need to determine which ones are zonal projects for intervention, where does Ministry of Works end, and who implements these zonal intervention projects. And then, agriculture, fine, but I have not seen agriculture doing much in rural development. They've made little or no impact on rural agriculture, subsistence agriculture. If you have adequate subsistence in agriculture in Nigeria, this idea of people being poor will disappear. Classifying Nigeria as being heavily poor will disappear, because people will fully subsist, be able to feed themselves, be housed, and even send out to the cities for the cities. But we tend to concentrate on industrialization of rice production, this and that. At the end of the day, that does not rub off on the everyday Nigerian.
Okay.
So, okay, And then education are considered as very poor, and we begin to pay emphasis on science and technology, which is not even highlighted in this budget. It is not treated as being a major thing. How can a country grow when your science and technology is not supported? You need the science and technology, R&D, for your economy to grow in a very sustainable manner until we begin to identify that we can never have an economy that is growing sustainably.
Dr. Ekechukwu, what's your view?
The budget of the country has been presented by Mr. President. Oyedele, the guy on Skype, did mention that the size of the economy is small. And the same way the size of the budget is seen to be small. 10.33 trillion is not anything to excite anybody considering the population of this country, considering the population of the country. And so we are expected to have about 8 trillion revenue base, about 8 trillion revenue base. You see that this is a major estimate. And if last year we were only able to achieve 58% of our revenue expectations, and we didn't achieve up to 100, not even up to 70%, and we are increasing it into about 8 point something trillion right now, based on what we expect to come from VAT, which will still go through the National Assembly. And of course, you know, National Assembly may or may not approve that. But if they eventually approve that, I do not see the possibility that that will give us the kind of revenue that has been projected. The next area I have a problem with is the fact that we have doubled our sinking fund. What that tells us is that from last year, our sinking fund has increased by more than 100%. Now, what it means is that we are actually going to be earmarking more for, you know, to settle our obligations, and that also tells you the size of the borrowing, level of borrowing we have done. But more worrisome is the fact that our capital budget is actually less than our debt servicing. You know, our capital budget is just about 2.1 trillion, and our debt servicing is higher than it, to about 2.4. So you see that we are even servicing our debt more than we are going to be investing, budgeted, we are going to be spending on capital projects. So these are some of the things I have seen, and think for a country that wants to really grow and stimulate its economy, we are servicing our debt with so much money than we are going to put in capital expenditure. So these are some of the things. Otherwise, we cannot spend more than we have. The size of our budget is just an indication that this is just what we can be. And I think we need to look a little less from the VAT expectation and look at other sources. I had the privilege of talking to somebody somewhere who knew. He said many parastatals and ministries that are supposed to be generating small income. You know, when we talk about generation of income, we look at FIRS, we look at customs, and probably, but there are many parastatals and ministries that are generating income, and many times they don't remit same to government. And so we have pockets of leakages here and there that should actually add up to that. And talking about who pays taxes and who does not pay tax. You see, I did mention here in the past that if every Nigerian pays tax, whether it is VAT or any other kind of tax, or it can be levy, if every Nigerian pays tax, as far as you're doing one job or the other, you are a vulcanizer, you're an electrician, you are my driver, and of course, I know our drivers don't pay taxes in any form. The house help that receiving salary does not pay tax. So if every month we deduct like 1,000 from these people's income and remit same to government, all these monies we're talking about are going to be complete, really. Only about
should we take taxes from those caliber of people?
They are Nigerians. They are benefiting
they are
from
Nigerians, but
they're Nigerians.
But
all over the world, all people pay taxes.
They're tax exempt already.
Yes.
Because of the level of their income.
Yes.
So they're not supposed to, unless you're reintroducing, unless you're reviewing
even with what the president did say also in the budget,
that's
for a company, for example, with what Mr. Oyedele clarified earlier.
I also mentioned, let me also mention that Many times when we see people paying taxes of a particular percentage of their income, income tax, they are not even paying up to 10%, 20% of what they are supposed to pay. Of course, you see all the kind of doctoring.
Underpaying.
Oh yeah, of course they're
under-declaring.
Yeah, under-declaring and underpaying. So is there any mechanism that can really make this country identify what exactly people are supposed to pay? There must be that mechanism. In many developed countries, you cannot underpay. You may do it for once, 2 times, but somewhere the law will just catch up with you. So there has to be a mechanism. Let them find it out. I don't know where it is. There has to be that mechanism.
But I think there is already. But you know, company, yes, I think there is already.
You see institutions under-declaring their profit and under-declaring, hiding one thing, and they go scot-free, and we allow that. If we can even get all those things going, we're going to be having a lot of revenue.
It's not peculiar to Nigeria. Even our big brother America and the US.
Well,
And of course, you know the Trump story.
Even President
you know the
Trump
Trump
himself,
story.
Yeah, he said so.
He has refused to present.
It was even
but
a
the
campaign
system is
issue
more
for
efficient in identifying those lapses. So we need to also look for ways of identifying the lapses even right now.